Are you something just because people say you are? Are you a lethal weapon because that is what people say you are? The answer, as Katsumi learns, is no. To earn strength you have to work for it. Effort is what rewards you with power, not expectations. Katsumi stands as one of the greatest examples of the folly of conceited strength, and the change a man can undergo when they go back to basics and try again. So if you find yourself entertained at any point during the video, then consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell. Anyway, on with the video. Katsumi's first appearance comes in the lead up to the Maximum Tournament, where a few things are made abundantly clear. Firstly, that he is a very clear foil of Baki, and second, that despite being a prodigy, he does not understand the point of martial arts. To explain the former, Katsumi is introduced as a young martial arts prodigy, the son of the legendary god of war, Orochi. Much like how Baki is the prodigy son of the world's strongest creature, Hanayama. Orochi adopted Katsumi for a purpose, in order to advance karate to its next level through Katsumi. Much like how Yujiro sought out Emi to sire a strong child that could be used in his own quest for strength. And well, as we will touch on in a bit, Katsumi acts in a way that is the polar opposite of Baki. But what did I mean when I said he does not understand the point of the martial arts? Well, let's turn to his first on-panel appearance. He walks up to a guy and rips out his teeth. He then brutally pummels the man and his friends, most likely maiming many for life. And why did he do this? Because one of them harassed his friend. He takes what should be a noble act and contorts it into a horrifying display, where the villain is made to seem like the victim. Best shown by how even the friend he did this for was horrified by what he did. It goes completely against the image of a disciplined and self-restrained martial artist. Instead of self-defense, he instead displays a feat of active violence. All the more ironic when, before we see this feat of over-the-top violence, he is being hailed by Doppo as the ultimate picture of karate. Katsumi is the one hailed as the future of karate and is blessed with insane strength. Yet what he shows off here is not martial arts. Much like how his strength is far greater than a normal man, everything he does is far more extreme as well. But let's turn back the clock a bit and explore Katsumi's childhood. As a child, Katsumi is, to be frank, superhuman. Even compared to the insane things Baki and Hanayama accomplished as children, Katsumi was, to be frank, on another level. At 5 years old he was tug-of-warring with an elephant, a feat of insane physical strength, and then subdued a lion that had just killed his father, a showing of even more insane mental strength. It goes without saying that Katsumi was born different. He was born with the potential to become strong. And so after his father was killed, Doppo adopted him, having witnessed his potential and so wanted to foster it into something new, something great. Into a future he was now too old to attain, and well, Katsumi delivered. He outpaced his father, doing things at the age of 21 it took him into his 30s, speed training towards even higher heights. He was always told to become better, to be the next face of karate. As such, he was always aiming higher and higher, never looking at the now, only what comes next. He was always instilled with the idea he had to catch up to and surpass his father, a big ask when his father is the war god himself. But of course he rose to the challenge, which led to great strength but also great ego. And most importantly, a lack of understanding of why we practice martial arts to begin with. He didn't choose to become a fighter, it was a path laid out for him. He was adopted for this very reason, given a new home for this reason. His entire life and purpose became to become strong. And although he enjoyed the perks of this strength, he never came to value it in the same way as someone like Baki. Fighting is about the now, but all Katsumi can see, all he has ever been allowed to see, is what comes next. In the Maximum Tournament, we see the hype continue, with him even being the penultimate fighter, announced only behind Baki himself. But what really puts him and Baki at odds is the escape of the Yasha Ape Jr. Katsumi takes to the arena to deal with the pest, and well, to be frank, handles Jr. very easily. This narratively placing Katsumi on an equal plane to Baki, given he has beaten the stronger version of one of Baki's previous opponents with ease. But more than that, Katsumi fights in a way Baki did not. He intended to kill the ape. Katsumi pummeled the Yasha Ape, fully intent on ending the fight in a violent spectacle, reveling in the power he had over the comparatively defenseless animal. This being in stark contrast to Baki, who showed mercy to the ape's father and fought with respect, not malice. Katsumi has no respect for those below him, for wild animals. This paints him in a similar way to Yujiro. Baki on the other hand is one who respects even those weaker than him, hence his anger every time an animal is harmed in the series. But Katsumi doesn't show respect to those weaker than him. He uses his full strength to do what he wants because as the stronger, he feels he has the right to. He basically doesn't agree with the idea that great power comes with great responsibility. The world should bend to his greatness, and if someone stands up to him, he will pummel them to demonstrate his superior might. This possibly being why he is so fixated on Baki, with him later explaining he wishes to show Baki up and defeat Yujiro first, the man the Underground Arena's champion could not. He wishes to prove his superior might to Baki by doing what he could not. Katsumi's bloodthirstiness and his use of excessive force that were foreshadowed in his introduction have now been fully exposed, and considering this wasn't even his match, it shows he is perfectly happy to use his strength for things outside the ring. In order to satisfy his sadistic pleasures, he will use his strength as he sees fit. However, it is not until his match against Roland we see the other core approach of his fighting style, beyond excessive force, and that is his lack of shame. Not to say he isn't excessively violent in this fight too. When the fight starts, he immediately runs away. He will show his back to his opponent, he will happily flee, bring shame not only to his name but the name of Shinshinkai Karate, because doing so will bring him closer to victory. What Katsumi is fixated on is beyond anything victory, something that goes against the series' overall lessons on fighting. That fighting isn't for an ends, such as victory, it is the ends. Is why the Underground Arena doesn't pay its fighters, because winning prize money isn't what is important. What the fighters of the series live for is the actual fight itself. So Katsumi, who is focused on just winning, goes against this core philosophy. Something backed up by how in his fight with Roland, the person on his mind is not the opponent before him, but Yujiro. He is not thinking about the now, about the fight, he only cares about winning so he can step forward towards something greater. Much like his 10-second 100-meter dash, he is running full speed ahead towards the future without any concern for the present. And he of course brings this into his next match against Hanayama, with his main goal in this match, aside from victory of course, being to show Hanayama, the brawler, the true strength of the martial ways. Hence why he shows off his well-honed martial techniques the moment he enters the ring, as if to show here is something my martial arts allow me to do, that a mindless brawler like you has no chance of replicating. Katsumi, most likely in an attempt to teach the superiority of karate over brawling, sought to embarrass Hanayama, which comes back to bite him when he is floored by Hanayama's first strike. And well, if Hanayama had the same mindset as Katsumi and capitalised on this, he may well have won then and there. But instead, Hanayama allows Katsumi to get back up. He shows chivalry. And well, what does Katsumi say in response? That it's horrible to care about appearances, that Bushido is far uglier than the Yakuza's chivalry. In other words, he looks down upon Hanayama's approach, because he isn't doing everything in his power to win. Unlike Katsumi, he is showing respect to his opponent. Katsumi criticises Hanayama's so-called soft approach. He sees Hanayama's actions as nothing but keeping up appearances. He really doesn't get the significance of Hanayama's approach. When Hanayama goes to throw a second punch, a well-telegraphed punch anyone could see coming, he is at a loss for words. This is meant to be a fight at the pinnacle. This is meant to be what his father had always been preparing him for. Yet here was his opponent doing what Katsumi could only conclude was pure stupidity. And yet, even so, Katsumi was once more floored by the attack. By an attack that held no martial skill, a punch that wasn't aiming to be the best or the new face of anything. It shattered Katsumi's preconceived belief in strength. And what follows is a display of not Katsumi embarrassing Hanayama, but Hanayama embarrassing Katsumi, making him writhe in the sand and vomit up bile. But Katsumi doesn't care about appearance, and so ditches his karate, ditches all offense, and just grabs hold of Hanayama in an attempt to lessen the force of his blows. And then, like in his previous match, shows his back and runs, because his actions are always directed at victory. This of course being in clear contrast to Hanayama, the man who doesn't think about victory, who lives in the moment and fights not to win, but to unleash his might. Katsumi was too ego-driven, thinking this was just a stepping stone on his rise to the top. As well, is that not his purpose? Is that not why Doppo raised him? He was not raised to lose to some unskilled brawler, he was destined to fight the ogre and become the strongest. And by looking off at the future, he could not see the now and so paid the price, having his leg destroyed by Hanayama, the man he was convinced he was so far above. After taking the dreaded vice grip, Katsumi comes to a bit of a realization. He concludes that he has no right to be praised as a lethal weapon, that he isn't any different from anybody else. He is ordinary and has to accept that. This is us, the reader, finally becoming aware of Katsumi's true deep-seated insecurities. He was always raised and expected to become a lethal weapon. He was adopted specifically because he was not ordinary, and so he, no matter what, could not be like any other man. He has to be better, because if not, then he'd not only let down his father, but have failed his one and only purpose in life. Despite what he had said at the start of the match, the one who truly cared about expectations was himself. He had to uphold the image people expected of him. That was the burden he was saddled with. He didn't choose to have this pressure put on him, but given the expectations and his own ego, he couldn't allow himself to be anything but the successor to his father. And so he crushes these thoughts and declares he is a lethal weapon, only to once more be shown the flaw by the superior strength of Hanayama. In this match against someone who is physically superior to him, he has finally shown what it is like to be ordinary. He is now in the shoes of everyone he'd ever hurt using his superior might. It's why his physical attributes and feats were highlighted in his introduction, not his martial skill, because natural ability was what made him better than others. Sure, he is skilled as a martial artist, but it was not skill but raw talent that amazed Doppo, and it is this raw power he has continued to use to bully those weaker than him. And now he is on the receiving end, as there is always a bigger fish. Only after taking another brutal pummeling does Katsumi come to realise the difference between them, that Hanayama is not looking at tomorrow. He realises that he shouldn't be focused on the future, he should be focused on the now. There's no point in thinking about fighting Baki or Yujiro if he can't get stronger enough in this moment to defeat the opponent before him right now. Sure, he can get stronger in the future, but that's simply irrelevant, as he will get stronger right now. And so he unleashes the Mach Punch, an attack he'd been saving to use on Yujiro. But that was where he had been mistaken. There is no point saving your full strength for tomorrow if you lose today. Him choosing to use his secret technique on some street brawler is the ultimate expression of how much he has changed in this match. He is paying no heed to the future, he is fighting with all he has in the now. Sure, he is still fixated on winning and living up to his father's expectations, but he has shed his ego and sense of superiority. He has been humbled, best shown by the concern he shows for Hanayama, much like Hanayama had done for him earlier in the match. This being in stark contrast to his approach to brutally finishing off his opponents so far. Despite saying he would be the one to teach Hanayama of martial strength, the one to learn the lesson here was Katsumi. This match being, in my opinion, the key moment that changed Katsumi from an arrogant, unlikable character into the fan favourite he is today. This match taught him that as strong as he may be, and as skilled without the right mindset, he will never be the man his father wants him to be. He has yet to achieve the mindset of a true karate. Hence why even if he surpasses his father in all metrics, he still could not see himself winning. An idea compounded on in his match against Retsu, as before the match, Doppo explains to his son that if Katsumi was to lose to Retsu, he'd feel like shutting down their school, as it would make clear the fact that karate had never progressed past the Chinese Kempo it originated from. If Katsumi is the final form of karate, then him losing here would mean karate is inferior to Chinese Kempo. And what happens? Well, he instantly loses. Though to give Katsumi his flowers, he does intend to use the Mach Punch right away, a sign of his change in mindset thanks to this last match. But ultimately he was defeated in a single chapter from no less than a piece of spit and a single punch. Modern karate had lost, that is what this fight represented. But in truth it was not karate that shattered, but the image Katsumi puts on. The image of the best. This was the loss Katsumi needed to expose his true insecurities and set him on the path to growing as a person and finding his own path as a fighter beyond just the path his father laid out for him, mirroring what Baki eventually comes to do too. After the maximum tournament with his father stepping down, Katsumi is thrust into a leadership position. Yet even though that was always the plan, the Katsumi that leads Shinshinkai is not the ultimate future of karate who looks down on the weak and sees themselves as the superior. Best shown at the start of New Grappler Baki, where we see Katsumi invite Retsu into the dojo with open arms. He has matured and as such admits to his loss and his inadequacies. And most importantly, he disagrees with his father's view, instead giving his own unique approach to karate that differs from his father's, as he no longer is trying to conform to the expectations his father had of him after they were shattered in the maximum tournament. He will plot out his own future, and so unlike his father who wished to prove superiority to their predecessor, Chinese Kempo, who said that only the best have the right to teach, He declares they shall steal from Chinese Kenpo's 4,000-year history. It's a vastly different approach to his father's, but that is because it is his approach. He respects the man who forced him to admit who he really was, who broke him free from the burden of being the next level of karate, and so wishes to learn from the man who did what he could not. To learn from others and innovate, to make up for your shortcomings by copying those who have already overcome them. This is his karate way. However, just as he says all this, he gets beaten up by Dorian and left in a rather pitiful state. This teaching Katsumi another important lesson, that so far he'd yet to experience a proper fight. He'd only been fighting in matches or picking on the weak, he'd been protected by his own innate superiority or the rules of a ring. But against Dorian he faced a true fight and he lost. And just like with his loss to Retsu, he learnt from it and learnt from Dorian. All the more fitting when we later learn Dorian, much like Retsu, is a Kyo, a practitioner of Chinese Kenpo. By his own words, he apparently learnt to be a proper karate. This leading to an interesting conversation where Doppo explains his philosophy on fighting, that a martial art that doesn't ensure victory is pointless, and that as long as it is not premeditated, it is fine. And Katsumi flat out disagrees with his father's ways, and says it is not the right way for Shinshinkai to operate going forward. His own approach being that one should toss aside ego and pride in the name of growing stronger, saying he doesn't even care if he stops being karate if it means achieving victory. Katsumi sees using even a weapon as fine if it means growing stronger, which Doppo obviously counters, saying that true karate turns your body into a weapon itself. At the heart of it, karate is a martial art, and martial arts are self-defense. That's what separates them from violence, and so for that reason, to premeditate in any regard disqualifies you as a martial artist. The convicts who prepare weapons ahead of time are not martial artists, as they are not defending themselves, they are out to cause pain. Now in the long run, Doppo's mindset does turn out to be more correct, but what is so important here is that Katsumi is thinking for himself, and what he thinks is best for Shinshinkai, and it's how he learns from these misconceptions and the words of his father that matter most. It is about the process. Later in the amusement park fight, we see Dorian versus Doppo, Katsumi coming to bear witness to a street fight. On Dorian's terms, it is won through nothing but pure martial skill. Doppo overcomes the tricks of Dorian with just karate, solidifying his previous statement that true karate turns your body into a weapon, it does not use weapons. Dorian may have learnt many things, but Doppo mastered the one thing he does know, karate. This amazes Katsumi and lays the groundwork in his mind for his true karate later in Son of Ogre. In this fight we also get a very important line from Retsu, that no fight is ever won before it's over. That is the meaning of fighting. And then, as Doppo says later in the fight, martial artists don't get everything from the martial arts, they are the ones who should give everything to martial arts. These all being lessons Katsumi takes on from his friend and his father. Now before we move on to Son of Ogre, where Katsumi puts all of these lessons into practice, we of course have to touch on Katsumi and Doyle's relationship. Now Doyle, as a death row inmate, approaches fighting by the philosophy, whatever I can use to win I will use, such as blades in the body or a flower bomb. And so in order to give Doyle the defeats he sought after, Katsumi pummeled him till he passed out, waited for him to wake up, and then did it again. If a fight doesn't end till one side admits defeat, then that is what Katsumi would enact. However, what Katsumi would find is that after a while he couldn't keep it up, and so he admitted defeat. Even though he knew a fighter's job was to harm someone else's body, he came to conclude that was not a skill that he possessed. He chose to lose for his own sake, because what he put value in was not beating down an injured man. That was not the karate he wanted to practice. And I mean, just compare this to how he was first introduced back in the Maximum Tournament. It's night and day. Through coming to understand the truth of his own karate, he has reached the point that Baki came to back in Grappler Baki, and for this he was rewarded, with his approach of restraint being what makes Doyle ultimately admit defeat. He was the only one to give a convict defeat through means other than a thorough pummeling. As well, martial arts aren't about destroying your opponent, they are about protecting yourself, and Katsumi may well embody this fact better than nearly everyone else in the series. That is what makes him, in my eyes, a true martial artist. And then to truly show that over this arc he has earned the right to stand at the head of Shinshinkai, he teaches Doyle the Seiken, and throws him his belt. He didn't use his karate to destroy an opponent, he used it to teach a lesson and form a new bond. Once again, much like Baki, because as Baki preaches with his actions, Using your strength to form new connections is true power. Now in Son of Ogre, Katsumi once more gets shit on, but this time not by his father, but by Yujiro himself, which makes sense as Yujiro really doesn't respect Baki's approach to fighting that Katsumi is now starting to embody. But narratively, this acts as motivation for Katsumi to get stronger. He has now found his own karate, but next he must refine it, leading into his fight with Pickle. But more so than just wanting to fight for his own sake, he is also fighting for his friend, for Retsu. As he says himself upon hearing Yujiro's words at the start of the arc, he has come to doubt if he himself is worthy of being the head of their mighty school, that he feels the pressure of being their leader. He doesn't have the charisma of his father or the power. More specifically, he has not got the power to beat Pickle. Pickle becoming a goal for Katsumi, a benchmark for being strong enough to be the head of Shinshinkai, and so even knocks out his father for the sake of pursuing this fight. But when he arrives on the scene, Pickle is gone, leading him to admit that it doesn't have to be him to defeat Pickle. He puts himself down and says he ain't suicidal, he won't start a fight he knows he can't win. But this is all lip service. Like in the Maximum Tournament, he is self-reflecting and then resolving to keep going anyway. Not to defeat Pickle, but to give his all to fight him. Retsu asks Katsumi to become the year 4001. In other words, Retsu wants Katsumi to push Chinese Kenpo to the next level, but Katsumi refuses because it has to be karate, and instead will become the 501st year of karate instead. He does so by not just copying what others did, but surpassing them, taking Kaku's technique and bringing it up to an even higher level, making the techniques of Chinese Kenpo his own, by combining his father's ultimate technique, the Bodhisattva fist, with the techniques of Chinese Kenpo and applying it to his own signature move. He became the year 501, leading to the creation of his new and improved Mach Punch, a technique that actually turns him into a lethal weapon, a technique that uses imagination. As well, like I have said, Katsumi is following the same path as Baki, and so he conforms with not the definition of strength that Yujiro personifies, but the one Baki believes in. But even cooler is how this new technique is just an improved version of his existing technique. He didn't seek out a new trick, he reinforced his old one with more effort, echoing the words of his father. The man who didn't know a lot of things like Dorian, but instead mastered the one thing he did know. And so this leads us to the climax of Katsumi's character, the most important fight of his life. But before he steps into that stadium, he first must embrace his mother, both his adopted mother and his birth mother. Both his nature and nurture were what shaped Katsumi into the man he was today. His raw natural talent would be nothing without his techniques, and his techniques wouldn't be possible without his talent for the martial ways. He loves both his mothers and they both love him. And then as he walks towards the arena, he sees Baki covered in blood, mirroring himself from the Maximum Tournament. And what does Katsumi do? He walks past him, because Katsumi is now complete as both a person and a fighter. He has now surpassed Baki, maybe not in strength, but as a person. Baki has yet to fight his father and so fully reconcile who he is, but Katsumi now has no doubts about who he is and what he is fighting for, and as such he can proudly walk past Baki and become the star of the show for himself. And do keep in mind that ever since the Maximum Tournament, Katsumi has never been in the spotlight. He wasn't part of the squad selected by Tokugawa to fight the inmates, and he got his ass handed to him enough in this arc as is. But now he was the focus. As he steps onto the grass, he is bombarded by the cheers of support of all the Shinshinkai members. In other words, the people he now leads. He can now take on the burden. This moment shows that he is now their leader, no questions asked, as he is the one they all show their support to, and they do so with a simple punch, the symbol of karate. A simple motion, sure, but when that many do it, it becomes a heavy load. Still, it is one he can now carry, and so he doesn't buckle, he marches on. These are no longer misplaced expectations. He has grown strong enough to meet the expectations others have of him as a lethal weapon. He's no longer the fraud trying to live up to his father's expectations. He now is the real deal, pushed on by the expectations of the men he now leads. They fill him with fighting spirit, because he isn't just fighting for himself. He is connected through karate to all of these people. It is the power of connection martial arts awards us. And well, since Retsu and Kaku are there too, it shows how martial arts can connect us even beyond disciplines and races. During the fight, when he is knocked away by Pickle, he is able to stand up due to not just the body his parents gave him, but also due to the techniques his adopted father taught him, and the fighting spirit his adopted mother bestowed in him. He thanks all four of his parents, dead and alive, because it is thanks to them, the personification of his nature and his nurture, that he is the him he is right now, and lands it on Pickle, his karate, condensed into a single Mach punch that surpassed the speed of sound, and as a result he did something no creature had ever done before. He brought Pickle to his knees. It was something Retsu in his 4,000 years of Chinese Kempo could not do, something even the mighty T-Rex could not do. It may have cost him his fist, his pride as a karate, but who cares because his power is stronger than any pain. Using the Mach fist as a base, he greatly improved all his techniques, be it his spinning kick or his knife hand, because he was now the strongest karate of all time, karate's 501st year. With his final and most powerful Mach punch, he rips his arm to shreds, because much like how breaking the sound barrier comes at a cost, so does reaching the top of the martial arts world. Nothing comes for free, everything comes at a price. Now, despite how it first appears, Katsumi did not defeat Pickle, and in a way this is probably for the best. Katsumi may have received cheers and praise from all those present for his apparent victory, but was that really what he wanted? No, the one he really desired the respect of was Pickle himself. When Pickle takes Katsumi's arm, it's as if to say Katsumi was a worthy enough opponent to satisfy his hunger. Katsumi resolved himself to be eaten by Pickle in full to give his life in this match. It was the greatest honour he as a warrior could receive, but Pickle did not wish to eat Katsumi, no, instead he for the first time prayed. Pickle, even without understanding the concept of sacrifice, just knew that Katsumi, this little man, had given up his life for something greater. Efforts for power. That arm in front of Pickle, honed through effort and hard work, was a treasure, unlike anything Pickle had ever experienced. And as such, that treasure was more than enough to satisfy Pickle. He left with an empty stomach, but he was fully satisfied by their fight. Katsumi once again is a teacher. Like how he taught Doyle back in New Grappler Baki, he now taught Pickle in Son of Ogre. He taught Pickle the beauty of the fight itself, not as a means to an end for food, for survival, but as something that satisfies you in its own special way. As he was carried out of the stadium, Baki felt nothing but regret for his previous comment. One made out of jealousy. He just couldn't have imagined the arrogant man he'd known for so long could have grown into such a noble warrior. A true showing of how much this man has changed. After recovering from this legendary fight, Katsumi, now the humble warrior he is, gives thanks to all those who contributed to his growth, to Retsu, and all of Chinese Kempo and Karate that followed. Beautifully represented with the tea leaves Retsu serves him, Japanese tea leaves fermented in Chinese tea. And that is where we leave Katsumi in Son of Ogre. He ends the main saga of the series as a very different man to the one he was introduced as. He first appeared as an arrogant man who only focused on results due to the immense pressure he felt as the next face of karate. He had to win no matter what, to not be seen as a failure, and grew conceited due to the praise of others and the destiny laid out before him. But due to Hanayama and Retsu, he came to learn his own shortcomings, that he was not worthy of being the new head of karate and that he didn't even understand the truth of a fight. Trying to grow from this and become a worthy leader of Shinshinkai, he took on the teachings of Retsu, but then also stumbled, and resorted to fighting like the inmates, throwing aside his pride as a karate to achieve victory. It was very much one step forward, two steps back, because Katsumi did not know who he was. Only by witnessing the true martial strength of his father did he realise where he had gone wrong, and so resolved to hone his karate in his own way. By admitting defeat to Doyle, he learned humility, and by teaching Doyle the Seiken, he proved his merits as a leader. He defined what his own karate is, one that stays true to the essence of karate but is not afraid to consume the techniques of other styles to enhance itself. Unleashing this perfected style upon Pickle, teaching the ancient man the joy of fighting, and by doing so proving the true power of his own martial ways. He ends the series as a now complete fighter, having finally become the lethal weapon his father wanted him to be. He now could stand proudly as the head of Shinshinkai, and as the next leader of karate. He through hard work, effort and sacrifice became the thing he falsely claimed himself to be back at the start of the series. Though he now boasts no arrogance, as he was not served this position up on a silver platter like before. No, he earned it with his own hands, to transform from a fake to the real thing. That is the journey of Orochi Katsumi. But of course we all know it doesn't end quite there, as Baki Do exists. Though personally I don't think Katsumi's character undergoes any big changes in Do, with all his moments acting more to reinforce his past development. For example, him gaining Retsu's arm is symbolic both of how he has taken in Chinese Kenpo into his own karate, creating a new style with the help of the old, and also of how martial arts connects us, with him now being physically connected to his deceased mentor and friend. Another point is how when he fights in the sumo tournament, he is enjoying every moment of it, echoing the lesson he taught Pickle, and also what he himself learned from Hanayama, that it's not about winning, it's about the fight itself. This best shown by how he willingly walks out the arena, losing the match, because he knew if he went any further, he'd have killed his opponent, and he no longer revels in sadistic showings anymore. The victory meant nothing to him, so he had no issue leaving when he did. But that's kind of all I want to say on Baki Do, because as already said, I think Katsumi's character reaches its conclusion within Son of Ogre. In short then, Katsumi was once arrogant and now he is humble. He shows us the correct path to strength and renown, not through expectation and nepotism, but through hard work and effort. He shows that even if you go down the wrong path, make mistakes and misunderstand things, as long as you are prepared to admit that and move to improve, try again with effort and resolve, then you can become truly great and truly strong. That is why Katsumi will always stand as not just one of my favourite characters in Baki, but in manga as a whole. And if you want to support this channel even further, then perhaps pledge to my Patreon, or consider becoming a channel member, so you can get your name at the end of the video like Hikari Desu, Rinjak9696, Mr. Sputum, and Matthias Rowett. So with all that said and done, I have been SephTheSin, the deadly sin of geek, and I am signing out. Stay safe, everyone.